Welcome back to F1 Motor Fever Podcast, my fellow petrolheads. Today, we're taking a trip down memory lane, revisiting the checkered career of Timo Glock, a man who carved his own path in the chaotic world of Formula One.
Glock, a classic underdog story. He started out on dirt bikes but then switched to go-karting after a nasty injury. He's a testament to the fact that sometimes a setback is a setup for a great comeback.
Absolutely. From the dusty tracks to the pinnacle of motorsport Formula One, Glock's journey was nothing short of incredible. He got his first taste of F1 in 2004 with the Jordan team due to an unexpected twist of fate.
Yes, when the team's regular driver encountered sponsorship problems, Glock got his break. A debut that he marked with scoring 2 points, and what a way to kick off an F1 career.
His F1 journey, though, was quite the roller coaster. After a brief stay with Jordan, he moved stateside to compete in the Champ Car World Series before returning to Europe for the GP2 Series.
And it's in 2007 where he truly shone, winning the GP2 championship and catching the attention of the big guns. The Toyota F1 team came calling next, and Glock didn't hesitate to answer.
2008. Who can forget Glock's inadvertent role in the championship battle between Lewis Hamilton and Felipe Massa at the Brazilian Grand Prix? It's like he played a part in a high-stakes drama, even if he didn't mean to.
Drama and Formula One go hand in hand, don't they? Glock's time with Toyota came to an abrupt end after the 2009 season, thanks to the global financial crisis. But Glock is not one to be kept down.
Indeed, he moved on to the Virgin Racing team in 2010, and though they struggled to be competitive, Glock's commitment to the sport never wavered. His F1 journey might have ended after the 2012 season, but his racing career didn't.
He switched to the German touring car series, the DTM, and became a familiar voice on TV, providing commentary on F1 races. A true jack of all trades.
It's been a thrilling journey, hasn't it, William? From dirt bikes to the DTM, from go-karts to the Formula One grid. Timo Glock's story is not just about his career in motorsport. It's an epic tale of resilience, tenacity, and an unwavering love for racing.
A reminder to all of us that in the world of motorsport, it's not just about the destination, but the journey. The curves, the straights, the pit stops, and yes, even the crashes. It's all part of the beautiful chaos we call racing.
Absolutely correct, William. Glock's journey might have had its ups and downs, but there's no denying that his passion for the sport has never diminished. And that, my friends, is what makes his story so special. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to F1 Motor Fever Podcast, the pit stop for all things Formula One. I'm your host for today, George, stepping in for Enzo, who will be back in the driver's seat soon.
And I'm William, your co-pilot for today's journey into the high-speed world of motorsport.
That's right, William. We've got these special Thursday morning episodes where we dive into the most epic and historic subjects of Formula One. And today, we're tearing up the tarmac with a deep dive into the intriguing career of Timo Glock.
A career that had its fair share of twists and turns, just like a Formula One circuit.
Oh, well said, William. Now, before we get our engines revving, we've got a small favor to ask our listeners. If you're enjoying our podcast, then don't forget to subscribe to the F1 Motor Fever Podcast channel. Smash that notification button, leave us a comment, and share this with your friends and family. Remember, every bit helps us keep the podcast running smoothly.
And who wouldn't want to share the thrill of Formula One with their loved ones?
Exactly, William. So why Timo Glock, you might ask? Well, his story is a riveting narrative of resilience, tenacity, and sheer love for racing. And we believe that his journey will resonate with all of you, the dedicated fans of Formula One.
And trust me, there's a lot more to Glock's story than meets the eye.
Absolutely, William Turner. There are ups, downs, high-speed thrills, and the undeniable passion for racing. Want more details on the fascinating journey of Timo Glock? Then stick with us on this thrilling ride.
Buckle up, listeners. It's going to be quite a ride.
So, without further ado, let's get this show on the road. Full throttle. Now let's talk about Glock's entry into the world of racing. It all started with his father, a passionate amateur racer. Glock Sr. never had the means to turn professional, but he passed on his love for motorsport to his son.
And it was on 2 wheels, not 4, that Glock first tested the waters. Quite the unconventional start for a future F1 driver.
Indeed, but as we've learned, Glock isn't one to stick to the conventional route. He switched to go-karting after an injury, and well, the rest is history.
It's interesting how an unfortunate incident can lead to an unexpected opportunity. That switch from dirt bikes to go-karting proved to be quite the turning point in Glock's career.
Absolutely. Now, the journey from there to Formula One wasn't exactly smooth sailing, was it? He first appeared on the F1 grid as a substitute driver in 2004, but it wasn't until the late noughties that his Grand Prix career started to take off.
Yes, and his time in F1 saw him at both ends of the grid. He was towards the front with Toyota, and then at the rear with the newcomers, Virgin. A truly diverse experience.
Certainly. It speaks to Glock's adaptability and tenacity. He's far from a one-trick pony. His post-F1 career highlights that.
From racing to punditry, he's managed to stay connected to the sport he loves, and he's far from done. He still has his sights set on future motorsport ambitions.
Glock's story is a vivid reminder that sometimes the path less traveled can lead to the most exciting destinations. It's the twists and turns, the unexpected detours, and the sheer unpredictability of motorsport that keeps us all on the edge of our seats.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's not just about the finish line, but the race itself. In Glock's case, it's a race that's far from over.
So it was Glock's father who gave him the push into the world of motorsport. After his injury, Glock took a 5 to 6 year break from racing, but eventually he found his way into go-karts and then Formula BMW, where he won the championship.
It seems like his family played a significant role in his racing journey. Is there more information about this?
Well, he did mention his dad's promise to support any of his children if they showed talent in sports. But let's continue with Glock's journey. After winning in Formula BMW, he moved up to Formula 3 and won races there as well. This led to him securing a coveted F1 test role with the Jordan team in 2004.
So he was making steady progress up the motorsport ladder. It's not common to see a driver succeed in so many different categories.
Yes, Glock's versatility is certainly commendable. Now here's where things get interesting. At the time, F1 had Friday driver regulations, which allowed reserve drivers to get some practice running. Glock was expecting just that, but he ended up getting much more.
I see. So how did he transition from a reserve driver to an actual racer?
Well, it was a bit unexpected. One of the regular drivers, Giorgio Pantano, ran into sponsorship problems and Glock was thrust into the spotlight, making a surprise F1 debut.
That's a huge leap. Did he ever express a desire to compete at the F1 level?
Interestingly, Glock admired Michael Schumacher but never really aimed for F1 himself. He thought it was too far-fetched. But as they say, life has a funny way of surprising us.
It sure does. It's a good thing he was prepared when the opportunity came knocking.
Absolutely. It just goes to show in the world of motorsport, you have to be ready for anything, even an unexpected leap into the F1 spotlight. While we're on the subject of unexpected F1 debuts, here's a little fun fact for our listeners. Did you know that Glock actually scored points on that unexpected debut race?
Really, that's quite an achievement.
It certainly is. Glock finished 11th, but was promoted to 7th after the Williams and Toyota cars were disqualified. So not only did he make a surprise debut, but he also managed to secure his first points in Formula One in that same race.
That surely must have been a day to remember for Glock.
I'm sure it was indeed. Just another chapter in the fascinating story of Timo Glock's racing career.
A story that's full of surprises and marked by resilience, a true testament to Glock's character.
Absolutely. It's these stories of unexpected triumph that make Formula One such a thrilling sport to follow. Just to mention, many of the insights we're discussing today have been sourced from an article I came across on the Formula One website. The piece was penned by Mike Seymour and published on the 21st of January 2024.
Ah, the official Formula One website. That's always a reliable source for all things F1. But it's crucial to remember the importance of cross-referencing, even from reliable sources, wouldn't you agree?
Yes, absolutely. While we put our trust in these sites for their authenticity, cross-checking from multiple sources helps ensure the accuracy of the information we share. Now let's get back to our main topic. Continuing Glock's F1 journey, the link between him and F1 started to form in 2003 when Deutsche Post, a sponsor for both Glock and Jordan, brought the two parties together.
Timing is everything, isn't it?
It certainly is. In 2004, Pantano was running out of funding, and Glock got his first racing opportunity in the middle of the year in Canada.
That must have been a nerve-wracking experience for him.
Indeed, especially considering how quickly everything happened. He was informed on a Saturday morning that he needed to drive. The same day, he participated in the third free practice and qualifying. Then, on Sunday, he took part in the race.
And how did the race go for him?
Well, he was just trying to avoid any mistakes. Despite the intensity of the situation and the presence of the German press, he managed to finish in 11th place. However, 4 Williams and Toyota cars got disqualified, and Glock found himself in 7th place, scoring his first points in F1.
Wow, that's incredible!
Yes, it was. But despite scoring those very important points, which also brought with it a significant amount of prize money, it wasn't enough to prevent Jordan from being sold to the Midland Group for the 2005 season. This resulted in several ownership and team name changes, leaving Glock without a drive.
That must have been difficult for him, especially after such a promising start in F1.
Indeed, but as we know, Glock's story didn't end there. It was just another twist in his exciting racing career. Glock's Formula One journey took a detour in 2005 when he moved to the States to compete in the Champ Car World Series. He did rather well, reaching the podium and even claiming the Rookie of the Year title. In 2006, he made a return to Europe for the GP2 Series.
Interrupting you there, it's important to note that the GP2 Series is often seen as a springboard to Formula One. Many successful F1 drivers, like Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg, and indeed Glock himself, have honed their skills in this series.
Absolutely, and Glock did rather well in GP2. In 2006, he finished in 4th place, and the following year was even more successful. He started the season with a victory, a 2nd place, and a trio of top 3 finishes in the first 5 races. He was leading by a significant margin after Monaco, and people were already congratulating him on his inevitable victory.
And yet, Glock remained cautious, reminding people that only half the season was done. That shows maturity and understanding of the sport's unpredictability, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It's worth noting that by that time, Glock was also a test driver for BMW and was receiving interest from Toyota. This period was truly pivotal for Glock, shaping his future in Formula One. Glock's GP2 dominance began to flip later in the season due to some technical issues. An unfortunate incident at Spa where Riccardo Rosati spun and hit Glock's front right suspension even before the race began was a significant setback.
That must have been a real blow, especially considering he was leading the championship by just 2 points over Lucas di Grassi.
Yes, it took the championship down to the wire. It all came down to the final race of the season in Valencia. The stakes were incredibly high. Toyota had indicated to Glock that if he won the championship, he would have a seat with them in Formula One.
That's an incredible amount of pressure to perform under.
Absolutely. The weekend was intense. The weather was unpredictable, alternating between rain and dry conditions. But Glock managed to pull through, won the GP2 championship, and signed a deal with Toyota.
A remarkable comeback story indeed.
It was. Signing for Toyota marked a significant step up for Glock. Not only was he back on the Formula One grid after several years, but he was also now part of a team with an eye-watering budget and cutting-edge facilities, a world away from what he had initially experienced with Jordan. Glock's move to Toyota was quite a change for him. He recalls his first day at the Toyota factory, late in the evening when no one else was around. To say he was impressed would be an understatement.
It must have been quite the contrast from his previous experiences.
Indeed. With 2 wind tunnels and all the resources you could think of, the factory was quite a sight. However, it did take Glock a bit of time to adjust to Toyota's 2008 package and understand how to best use Bridgestone's tires.
Adjusting to a new team, especially one as high-profile as Toyota, can be a complex process.
Absolutely. Glock admits that his first year with Toyota was a tough one. Particularly in the first half of the season, he had some difficulty finding the right setup direction over a race weekend.
And those grooved tires in 2008 must have been tricky to work with.
Yes, they were. But once he figured out how to follow the track's evolution rather than doing too much setup work on Fridays, his results started to improve. In fact, he ran a fine race to finish fourth in Canada, the very place where his Formula One racing career began 4 years earlier. Glock's performance began to shine through as the season progressed. He scored points consistently and even celebrated his first podium finish in Budapest. That weekend was a memorable one for Glock, from the very first lap.
A first podium finish is always a special moment in any driver's career.
Indeed. And Glock wasn't done making waves that season. In the closing stages of a tense championship decider in Brazil, Glock made a risky decision as he stayed out on slick tires while most of the front runners pitted for intermediates due to rain. This gamble initially allowed him to gain a host of places.
That sounds like a gutsy move. It's decisions like these that can make or break a race.
Absolutely, and this decision certainly made that race memorable. As the checkered flag approached and Hamilton was sixth, one spot away from what he needed to beat race leader Massa, Martin Brundle shouted out one of the most memorable lines in F1 commentary. "Is that Glock?"
Haha, that's brilliant. I can only imagine the surprise on everyone's face when they heard that.
It was definitely a moment for the ages. You know, that situation would make a great line for a suspenseful movie.
Ha ha ha. Or a cliffhanger ending for a TV show. Stay tuned for the next episode. Who's that in the rain? Is it Glock?
Ha ha ha! Brilliant! We need to pitch this to a network. I can see it now. Formula One, the TV series. The drama didn't end with Brundle's iconic commentary. As the rain worsened, Glock was like a sitting duck. As they navigated Junção and began the uphill climb to the finish line, Hamilton emerged with a decisive fifth-place finish.
Incredibly dramatic. The stuff of legends, really.
Absolutely. Glock recalls that he didn't even realize his role in deciding the championship. In his own words, he said, "I never thought this would happen to me."
Quite the predicament to be in. From mere participant to unwitting kingmaker in one race.
Yes. It's fascinating how one race can change perceptions. When he arrived back after the race and parked behind Lewis, he had to ask his engineer who had won the championship. After he congratulated Lewis, a group of journalists quickly ran towards him.
I bet he thought they were running towards Lewis.
Spot on. He did think so. He even stepped aside for them, only for them to swarm him instead.
I can't even imagine his surprise.
He was bombarded with questions like, "Was it on purpose? And why did you do that?" Quite the unexpected turn of events for Glock. Glock was genuinely surprised by the turn of events. He even needed his physiotherapist to explain what had really happened. Once he understood, he accepted that it was all part of Formula One history.
To be honest, I'm struggling with the sequence of events. Could you run through it again?
Of course. Glock wasn't aware of the championship situation when he stayed out on slick tires while others pitted for intermediate ones. It wasn't until after the race, when his engineer told him that Hamilton had won the championship, that it dawned on him. His decision not to pit had inadvertently influenced the championship outcome.
Ah, I see. That must have been quite a shock for him.
Indeed it was. Despite that whirlwind experience, Glock finished the season just 6 points behind his experienced teammate, Jarno Trulli. There were high hopes for him and Toyota to progress further in 2009, when all new regulations were coming into play.
That's quite impressive. So how did those new regulations affect his performance?
Well, Toyota was one of the 3 teams that came up with an innovative double diffuser at the start of the season. This proved to be a game changer in the early races. In fact, Glock describes their car at that time as just a great car. Their campaign started dramatically when the 2 TF-109S were disqualified from qualifying in Australia over a rear wing breach, but made a stunning recovery to finish 3rd and 4th on race day. The 2009 season was a mixed bag for Glock. In Bahrain, he even secured a spot on the first row of the grid and led the race. Sadly, a wrong tire choice cost him momentum. He was the first to switch to hard tires and just couldn't maintain the pace.
That's quite unfortunate, especially after such a promising start.
Yes, it was a blow. However, despite some weird moments, including a disappointing weekend in Monaco where Toyota's pace vanished, leaving them at the back of the grid, Glock managed to bag 2 more podium finishes and a decent number of points.
That's a silver lining, isn't it?
True, but the season took a turn for the worse when Glock had a violent crash during the qualifying round for Toyota's home Grand Prix in Japan. The crash left him with an injured leg and a cracked vertebra. Kamui Kobayashi was brought in as his replacement.
That's a harsh setback. How did Glock handle it?
He was keen to return to action, but Kobayashi raced in Brazil and Abu Dhabi as discussions about Toyota's future in Formula One went on in the background. Unfortunately, the global financial crisis was beginning to bite, and Toyota decided to pull the plug on their F1 operation. It was a grim end to what had been a promising journey.
It's always sad to see a promising career cut short by circumstances beyond the driver's control. It just goes to show how unpredictable the sport can be.
Now Glock believes he could have participated in the last two races, but Toyota chose to keep Kobayashi in. He thinks that with a Japanese driver, they might have been able to convince the board to continue their Formula One run.
That's a sensible theory, but it seems it didn't pan out.
Indeed. Glock says this with a bit of regret because he believes the 2010 car would have been really good. Based on what he heard from Toyota guys who had moved to Ferrari, the new car was quite a step ahead in aerodynamic performance.
It's a shame that we never got to see that car race.
It is. Now, taking a step back, what's your personal take on all this so far?
Well, it's certainly a classic case of what might have been. Glock showed promise, and it sounds like Toyota had some promising developments in the pipeline. But circumstances conspired against them, and they had to withdraw.
I quite agree. It also begs the question about the potential of Toyota's next challenger and whether it could have turned their failed F1 assault into a success.
We'll never know, will we? But going by what we've heard, it seems like they were on the verge of a breakthrough.
Glock himself admits that he would have loved to drive the new car. But alas, he didn't get the chance. He also makes an interesting point about the structure of Toyota being somewhat problematic. It's a complex issue, and to be fair, hindsight is always 20/20, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's easy to look back and point out what went wrong. But in the heat of the moment, with all the pressures and expectations, it's a completely different ballgame.
Glock feels that one of Toyota's shortcomings was their slow decision-making process. Ideas had to be sent to Japan for approval, and this took months. He compares it to trying to steer a big ship that takes some time to turn.
That certainly sounds like a problematic process, especially in a fast-paced industry like Formula One.
Yes, it definitely was. Now here's where the story takes a rather somber turn. Just as Glock's F1 career was about to take off with the promising new Toyota car, he had to start from scratch. He ended up joining one of the new for 2010 teams, Virgin Racing.
That must have been quite a blow to his career.
It was a tough decision for him, as he was in talks with Renault at the time. But then Renault also decided to leave the championship. Since it was late in the season, Glock had no other option in F1 than signing with Virgin.
Talk about being stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Indeed, and to add to that, Glock found the transition challenging. Going from Toyota, a big team, to Virgin, one of the smallest, was a stark contrast. He describes it as moving from a state-of-the-art workshop to a small garage where they built an F1 car.
It just goes to show how dynamic and unpredictable the world of Formula One can be. One moment you're on the brink of great things, and the next, you're back at the starting line.
The shift to a smaller team significantly changed Glock's racing experience. He knew that after 15 or 20 laps, he'd be seeing the blue flags, signaling that the leaders are nearing to lap him, and essentially that the race was over for him.
That's a drastically different experience from leading the race, isn't it?
Absolutely. But Glock still enjoyed the racing because, at the end of the day, it was still Formula One. He enjoyed working with the team at Virgin, even though many of its members lacked F1 experience. The team dynamics improved further when Pat Simons joined as a consultant.
Ah, Simons, a respected figure in the F1 world.
Yes, Glock speaks highly of him. He mentions that Simons had a clear vision and direction for the team, which was encouraging. But the progress was slow because they lacked the funds to make a significant leap.
It's always unfortunate when a lack of funding hinders progress.
Indeed, and it gets worse. After 3 seasons at Virgin, where the best Glock could do was a 12th place finish at the 2012 Singapore Grand Prix, his time in F1 came to an end. The team informed him on the 23rd of December that they wouldn't be able to retain him for another season.
That's quite late in the day to be giving him that news.
Exactly. It left Glock with no other options in F1, so he decided to move to the German touring car masters. Quite a tumultuous journey, wasn't it?
Certainly, but that's the nature of professional sports. You never know what's around the corner.
Glock continued to look for opportunities in F1, but the timing was simply wrong. He then shifted his focus to the German Touring Car Series, or DTM, where he had a successful run, claiming several victories and finishing as high as 5th in the 2018 and 2020 seasons.
Can you give us an insight into his transition from F1 to DTM?
Well, the transition definitely had its challenges. Adjusting to the different dynamics of the racing series, the different car specifications, and the different racing strategies would have been a learning curve. But Glock managed to hold his own and carve out a successful career in DTM.
And he didn't just limit himself to racing, did he?
No, he didn't. Glock also started a new motorsport challenge, one that took him out of the cockpit and into the world of television punditry. He remains an active figure in the F1 paddock as a pundit for German television.
How did that come about?
It all started in 2015 when he did his first race for RTL, the German television station. Niki Lauda, the expert for RTL, couldn't do the Grand Prix in Russia, so they contacted Glock.
That's fascinating. Could you provide an example of his work as a pundit?
Sure. Initially, Glock was hesitant, but decided to give it a go. He found the experience enjoyable and appreciated the opportunity to talk about his sport and share his insights with television viewers. His punditry career took off from there. The following year, he did 5 races, and when Lauda left, he and Nico Rosberg shared the role at RTL. Glock's punditry career continues to flourish. He worked with RTL until Sky acquired the broadcasting rights. He was then approached by Sky, and he's been working with them for the past 2 years. He says he's really enjoying it.
It's great to see him finding success in a different aspect of the sport.
And he isn't done with racing yet. He's got his sights set on Le Mans, the iconic 24-hour race. He ended his relationship with BMW and his stint in DTM, but he's been racing in the Porsche Super Cup.
An enduring passion for racing, clearly. What's his take on the current F1 cars?
Glock is very impressed with the speed and development of the current F1 cars. He'd love to try a current spec car, but he jokes that he may not survive more than 2 laps because his neck wouldn't be able to handle it.
That's the reality of the physical demands of Formula One. It's certainly not for the faint-hearted.
Well, folks, that brings us to the end of this exciting episode on the F1 Motor Fever podcast. We've taken a deep dive into the thrilling career of Timo Glock, haven't we? It's been quite a journey, and we're sure it's one you'll want to share. So don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and spread the word about our podcast on your favorite social media platforms, and even in your casual chats with friends. Each share, like, comment, and subscription helps us bring you more content like this.
If you've enjoyed this episode, just imagine what's coming up next. We've got more thrilling stories and fascinating insights lined up for you. You wouldn't want to miss out, would you? By the way, Enzo, if you're listening, we're sure you'll love this episode.
Indeed. It's always a pleasure to bring these stories to your ears. We can't wait for you to join us on our next episode. Thanks so much for tuning in, and until next time, remember, pedal to the metal. Keep your gaze on the road. Our channel's content is pure gold.